Okay. Right. All right. Excellent. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome everyone to this FIP YPG digital event for the FIP YPG Career Toolkit Post-Publication Series. Thank you to those joining us live today, and thank you very much to those who will be listening in afterwards. I'd also like to warmly welcome our panelists today, whom I'll shortly introduce, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to state that all attendees who attend our full live stream today will be receiving certificates of attendance. We'll begin with some introductions, information on the FIP and webinar house rules, before moving on to the introductions of our panelists, followed by their presentations, a question and answer session before we wrap up this event. I'm Anisha, the FIP YPG Workforce Development Hub Liaison and an assistant lecturer at the School of Pharmacy, Monash University, Malaysia. I am a registered pharmacist in New Zealand and Australia, and I lecture across all pharmacy practice and experiential units in Monash, Malaysia. I also lead the interprofessional education and Monash model of care portfolios, and I'm grateful to have received numerous accolades for teaching and education research, and I look forward to doing more meaningful work in this field. My career journey of 10 years has seen me dabbling across various disciplines in pharmacy, from community and clinical pharmacy to academia, and I think that's very timely with the topic of today's webinar. Joining me today is my co-moderator, Mr. Otuto Amaruchichukwu, a young pharmacist from Nigeria. He holds a bachelor's degree in pharmacy and a master's degree in clinical pharmacy and pharmacy management. He is a member of the International Pharmaceutical Federation. He's also an alumnus of the World Bank Institute and Singularity University, California, an associate fellow of the Royal Commonwealth Society and a Mandela Washington Fellow. He's currently the co-founder and research lead of MedChain Solutions. The International Pharmaceutical Federation was founded in 1912 in the Netherlands. It is the global federation of national associations representing 4 million pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists around the world. FIP's vision is a world where everyone benefits from access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable medicines and health technologies. Our mission is to support global health by enabling the advancement of pharmaceutical practice, sciences, and education. Next. So how can you join the FIP Young Pharmacist group, which is the group that I'm a part of and that I have really enjoyed being a part of? Firstly, it's open to all pharmacists, pharmaceutical scientists, and students if you meet either of these two criteria. One is being under 35 years old, or if you have graduated less than 5 years ago from your first degree in pharmacy or pharmaceutical science, irrespective of whether it's bachelor's, master's, PhD, or PharmD. The membership fee is dependent on your country's income, and it can range from 19 to 50 euros. Next. Next slide, please. In the next slide, you'll see a special excerpt from the Career Development Toolkit that is for early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists. We know that the world's pharmacy team is fighting COVID-19 everywhere, and working closely with other healthcare workers often puts our lives at risk to protect and to care for the patients and the public during these times. So as part of this online program, we will be featuring more webinars this year, so please stay tuned. Next slide, please. We have some house rules for us all to note tonight before we begin. So I think, let me just share screen just a moment. I believe that we are having some slight technical difficulties, so just bear with us. Okay, so we have some house rules. Just give me one moment as I organize these. So with this webinar, it's being recorded and live streamed via Facebook. The recording will be available on our website, and you may ask questions using the question box provided. You're also welcome to provide feedback using this link available here, which is webinars@fip.org. And you can also become a member of FIP looking at this link here, which is fip.org/membership_registration. Otuto, could I get you to please share your screen, if you don't mind? Excellent. So we want to go on to slide 9, which is strategies for a successful career change. Let us just hold on a moment. It's been, I think, 1 to 2 years of a lot of Zooming, and just bear with us as we get on to our slides. So Otutu, when you're ready, we can go on to slide 9, please. You would want to share from your PowerPoint, Otuto. At the moment, we're seeing the full screen, not the PowerPoint.
Anisha, maybe it will be better if you...
Hello, Anisha, please, can you continue sharing from your own end? I'm having some network technicalities.
Okay, just give me a moment because I will need to send myself a document. All right, just 1 second. Just 1 second, yeah, while we sort this out. Okay, all right. Okay, let us try and share the screen now. Are you trying to share screen again, Otuto? Or would you like me to? If you would like me to share screen, I can do so. Do you want me to do it?
Okay, please go ahead. I tried sharing again. I didn't know you weren't seeing it.
Okay, all right. No, we just can't seem to get the right screen with the one that you were sharing. So let me give this a go. And I think it will be easier. Let me get this going from current slide. Okay, excellent. All right. So slight technical issues and now we're back on track. So here are some house rules for us all to note before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed via Facebook. Please note that this event will be recorded and available at www.fip.org. To all those who are listening, please feel free to send your questions through the Q&A box, and we will be picking those up throughout today's session. You're welcome to provide feedback at the link stated, as well as to become a member of the FIP at the link stated. Could I please get you to mute your microphones if you're not presenting? Thank you. So that brings us to the next slide, which is today's title and today's topic of our webinar, Strategies for a Successful Career Change. So I'm very pleased for us to actually have this great panel to help us present and to provide their opinions in today's webinar. So this webinar, what we really hope is that by the end of it, participants will be able to identify and analyze one's reasons for career change, to identify and select the right career henceforth, to identify one's skills and compatibilities in the career choice made, as well as to identify one's interests and how they affect career choices, to also identify one's values and how they affect career change, as well as to think about remuneration and its impact on career decisions. So I'm now pleased to introduce our panelists. We've got with us joining us today, Dr. Pek-Yong Chia, from the University of Oxford and Mahidol Oxford Tropical Medicine Research Unit. We also have Mr. Brian Sekali from the University of Florida College of Pharmacy. And we've got Ms. Jess Liu, Head of Medical and Technical Affairs, ASEAN and ANZ in Procter & Gamble Health. So without further ado, let's move on to our first speaker. So Dr. Pek-Yong Chia, an associate professor of University of Oxford, is based in Bangkok at the Mahidol Oxford Tropical Medicine Research Unit, also known as MORU. She is the founder and current head of bioethics and engagement at MORU. Dr. Chia's research focuses on ethical issues arising in research with undeserved populations, in particular, how to ethically involve children, migrants, refugees, and other vulnerable groups in research. Dr. Chia grew up in Malaysia. She has a degree in pharmacy, an MSc in bioethics, and a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. Thank you very much, Dr. Chia. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Nisha. Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you very much for having me. I am Pek-Yong, based in Bangkok. I'm an associate professor at University of Oxford. So I'm being tasked to address today to match your interests with your career and how you go about doing that. And I found this very famous quote that I'm sure you've heard of. If you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Next, please. Next slide, please. All right, so this is what I've been tasked to address, to identify your interests and how they affect your career choices, and to discuss how to select a good career path. I know this is a very, what I've been tasked to do, but I will describe to you my story. So, and hopefully you can, I can explain to you how I got there. Next, please. So I grew up in Penang, Malaysia. Born and bred. I went to school there. My mum still lives there, and I even went to university there. Next, please. So a little bit about myself first. This is, I went to this school in Penang, and I'm quite old, as you can see. Next, please. St. George's Girls' School. And then I went to University Science Malaysia. From that's I'm a pharmacist, so my first degree is in pharmacy. I got my B.Pharm at University Science Malaysia. Now I must take the opportunity to say this now. A pharmacy degree is a great degree. It is very useful. You can do many things with it. And then after I finished my B.Pharm, I did a 1-year housemanship in a hospital in Malaysia. And then I went on to pursue my PhD, all in the same university. Next, please. So I guess you can see it as a little bit of a career change as well. So during my PhD, I did urology research. So armed with my pharmacy degree, I went to do a PhD, and I was invited to join the team conducting this research called terrazocin versus placebo in chronic prostatitis. So from a pharmacy degree, I went to do urology research, and that made me a little expert in the field that I was studying, which is chronic prostatitis. And this was what I did for three years as part of my PhD. Next, please. So what I learned, okay, so after my pharmacy degree, most pharmacy degrees, you have physiology, pharmacology, pharmaceutics, etc. So I had this knowledge base already. I worked in the hospital for a year. So I saw what happens in a hospital, so clinical pharmacy, learned about dispensing and all that. And then in my PhD, I learned a lot about prostate and learned a lot about how to run research studies. But I also learned a lot of other things like project management, time management, working as a team, how to collaborate with people, do statistical analysis and data analysis, write presentations, write academic papers, and public engagement, and a lot more. So with that in mind, after I finished my PhD, I had lots of options. I mean, theoretically, lots of options. As you know, you can go into pharmaceutical company, join the sales and marketing, or you can do community pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, you go into industry, research, academia, etc. I chose to do research. I think I knew by this time that my the thing I love is actually research. So of course, if you're a pharmacist or if you have a pharmacy degree, then drug trials, pharmaceutical research would be the natural way to go. Next, please. So I chose to join Abbott Laboratories in 2002 as a clinical research associate. So for those of you who know this role, so clinical research associate used to be called a monitor. So you join a team that conducts medical trials, and you are part of the operations team, if you like. It was in Malaysia, and the drug I was looking after was sibutramine. It is an anti-obesity drug, which is no longer in the market now. So the common denominator here is research. You see, I've totally changed the medical, from one medical area to another. And then after that, after a few years as a clinical research associate, I was doing medical affairs for a while. And then 2005, I decided, let's just go to the UK. So I got a job in University of Oxford as research support associate. So these two roles are very clinical trials operations. I'm not the primary investigator or the lead principal investigator. I'm part of the support team. So I worked in that team for a while. And then an opening came up in Bangkok. So in the Bangkok office, it is a branch, if you like, of University of Oxford. And we do lots of clinical trials from here. And I took up the job as head of clinical trials. So again, it is more an operations job. Like the one in Oxford, the job in Bangkok involves a bigger team, but basically it's operations. So protocol development, ethics submission, data management, monitoring, etc. And then here is another change in my career trajectory. In 2015, I thought, so I have always liked research. I thought, I like research, so why don't I do my own research instead of supporting other people's research? So in 2015, I decided to do my own research. But I also thought that throughout my career up to then, I really liked the ethics of running research studies. So research studies, it can be any drug, it can be any disease, but ethical issues within the research is really interesting, like how to obtain consent, how to involve vulnerable populations in research. So 2015, I started a new team, Bioethics and Engagement at the Moru Tropical Network. And I raised funding for it, and I started my own research team, and that's where I am now. And then 2016, I got my associate professorship, and I am still here. Next, please. So what does it mean? What does it mean if you're an academic with your own research team? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but rewarding. You have to apply for research grants, lead your own team, lead your own research, write academic papers, and of course supervise PhD students as well as master students, and be on lots of committees. And I shouldn't forget to say that to make this change, it wasn't you know, it wasn't a decision I made very lightly, because to be an expert or to change careers to bioethics, well, I had to take a degree in bioethics, not because it was compulsory, but because I wanted to be good at it. So I have a pharmacy degree, and I wanted a master's so that I can be good at it, as well as because as practicing at it, I have wanted to understand the theories as well. But in addition to that, I also took up some courses on qualitative research. So this is part of bioethics research. Qualitative research is also important. Next, please. And just a little bit about the Moru Tropical Network. So this is my team. So I have a research team, and these are students as well as staff. So just a little bit about us. We are based in Bangkok, part of the University of Oxford. And over here in Bangkok, we're hosted by Mahidol University and funded by the Wellcome Trust. We've been here for more than 40 years with more than 800 staff. And I started a dedicated bioethics and engagement team within Moru. So if you don't have a job that's on offer, you can create one. So this is how I did it. But you have to raise funding for it and convince lots of people that a new team or new department is necessary. Next, please. Okay, so why are we in Bangkok? So our head office, if you like, is in University of Oxford, but we're based in Bangkok because we work on tropical diseases, and within 1 hour's flight from Bangkok, we can reach most of, well, not 1 hour, within a few hours flight from Bangkok, we can reach a lot of the world's population. And this is where a lot of neglected tropical diseases are, malaria, for instance. Next, please. So there's a lot of, we do quite a lot of research on tropical medicine, like malaria, as I said. We do some AMR work, antimicrobial resistance, which I'm a pharmacist, I can do AMR work, and lots of, and since COVID, we have some COVID research as well. There's a big randomized controlled trial using hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine versus placebo. Okay, next, please. So what do you mean by bioethics and engagement? Not many of you would have heard of this combination before. So it means that as an academic, I do research in bioethics. For example, how best to involve participants ethically? What are the ethical implications on, let's say, non-pharmaceutical interventions in COVID, like lockdowns? What are the implications on people's lives? I also conduct research on engagement. For example, how to engage communities so that our work is relevant, ethical, and responsive. I also do quite a lot of social science research, qualitative interviews, etc. Next, please. Here are some of the examples that some projects that I've done recently. So I mentioned COVID. So this was a survey and qualitative study in Thailand, Malaysia, UK, Italy, and Slovenia. Next, please. And this is a project by my DPhil student or PhD student, Naomi. She's looking at the ethics of and practical issues around sharing of health-related data. If you're interested, have a look at the survey by scanning the QR code here. Next, please. So that's the more ethics part. What about engagement? So what do we mean by engagement? So if we conduct research studies like malaria in rural communities, we want to engage with communities we serve so that we embed community voices into our research. And when we finish our research, we want to disseminate our findings back to that community. So this is what we mean by engagement. And why do we do engagement? So that our work is more ethical. So some examples are, the first one is the Tak Province Community Advisory Board. So this board I set up 10 years ago. So we engage with the communities on the Thai-Burmese border. They are mainly migrants and refugees. So the research we conduct with that community, we want to make sure that it is responsive to that community. The second example here is a young person's advisory group in Cambodia. So this, again, we conduct research with children, but we don't really know how they feel about it. So we have this young person's advisory group so that we can chat to them and get their views on how to conduct research with them. And we have many arts and science collaborations. And one example here is called the Village Drama Against Malaria Project. This is when we use drama to explain to rural communities about malaria, because a lot of them are illiterate, they don't understand too much scientific language, so we use these approaches. Next, please. Okay, so what does it all mean for your career? I mean, we're all armed with a pharmacy degree. So here is my Venn diagram that I drew. So on one is there's a heart. What do you love? What do you love to do? What makes you happy? So that's one aspect of things to look at. The second one on the right, I have a little tool here. This is, what skills do you have? What experience do you have? And then the last one, there's a $sign here, but of course, money is important. You can't live on fresh air and sunshine. Some of you do, but not most of us. But it means that, it means that other than money, it has to be a job that somebody needs, there's a demand for it, and that it pays as well. I also have a fourth requirement, and it will be on the next slide. So in the Venn diagram, if it would be great if you can choose the one in the middle that overlaps all three. But here's another thing that I was reading up very recently. So Peter Singer, he's a philosopher and ethicist, and he has this movement called effective altruism. Effective altruism is a philosophy that is based on using reason and evidence in order to do the most good. So I'll leave you with this quote here. He says that you can help others the most effectively by not only figuring out which charities to donate to, but also based on your career choice. This can be done either by choosing a career which makes a positive impact, or by choosing a high-paying job so that you can donate more to an effective charity. So the four things: do what you love, what you're good at, what is in demand or what pays, and what does the most good. So if you can hit all of the above, you're there. But I know it's not easy, so I'm happy to answer any questions later. Is there one more slide? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chia. Thank you for joining us today. That was a very insightful presentation, and I couldn't agree more on several of the things that you said. Firstly, that being an academic, there are multiple roles that one has to juggle. But regardless, I think together with how you have viewed it, I've also found it to be a rewarding career to change into. And also with what was just mentioned about finding value in one's work. Whether it is by choosing a career through which one finds purpose, whether they can make a difference, or whether it's through the rewards that they gain from the career in terms of salary, or whether in terms of the impact that you produce, I believe that is a key to a successful career change and to having a successful career. And we'll actually look into this a little bit further with our next speaker, Mr. Brian Sekali. So Mr. Brian Sekali is a Ruffalo Graduate Education and Research Fellow at the University of Florida College of Pharmacy in the United States of America. He is also the Vice Chair of New Generation of Pharmaceutical Sciences Special Interest Group. Brian, or Mr. Sekali, earned his BS in Pharmacology and Toxicology at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, along with an MS in Computational Science at Stockton University. He's held positions at GSK or GlaxoSmithKline as a chemist, at Tabula Rasa Healthcare as a pharmacokinetic research scientist and lead data analyst. And he was also an ORISE pre-doctoral fellow within the FDA's Office of Clinical Pharmacology. His current activities focus on the integration of computational modeling and clinical pharmacology for deeper mechanistic insight and clinical optimization of drugs. So thank you very much, Mr. Sekali. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction, Anisha, and thank you very much for FIP for allowing me to speak with you all today. So today I will be speaking specifically about the identifications of one's values with respect to career changes, as well as the remuneration influences on career changes. However, both of these things are quite personal in terms of how you go about deciding these with respect to career change. So to best explain this, I will be using my career path as the example. Thank you. So as a higher note, before I go into the details, basically what this path is showing is my career path so far, from pharmacist to medical chemist to software developer to clinical software developer, and then lastly where I'm at now is a PK/PD modeler. So to go back to 2009, I was a PharmD at the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, and at this time, I went from pharmacist to pharmacology research. And at that time, I also had a position as an academic researcher in medical chemistry. So upon graduating, I was able to acquire a position as a chemist and worked there for 2 years. Really enjoyed that and basically developing drugs for pharmacists. And at that, around 2014, I realized that there's this new wave of technology coming in which you can use computer modeling and computer science to better develop drugs in silico before you build them in the lab. And so in 2015, I transitioned to a master's in computer science, leaving my position as a chemist, and basically started working on these new sets of skills. During my master's studies, I was able to find a position as a PK research scientist to still hone my pharmacology education. And I was lucky enough to also start integrating my computer science skills with the PK research scientist activities, as well as software development for clinical pharmacy. And then finally, in 2018, I started as a PhD student and research fellow at the University of Florida, which is basically taking everything I had learned and progressing it even further. So what that means is basically taking the chemistry aspects of the molecules and their physiochemical properties, taking the computer and modeling and simulation aspects, as well as the clinical pharmacy, and learning how to integrate that all to simulate clinical trials, to simulate drug action in the body, and ultimately all to optimize healthcare. So as you see on the bottom, basically, I'd like to highlight that careers are rarely a straight line. So as though I show on this slide, it's easy at the bottom of the slide, you can see it was much more of a crooked path, and I'm sure there's much more lines I could add to that. Yeah, and I guess since this is an FIP webinar, oh, sorry, go back 1 second. I'd also like to highlight in 2016, what began my transition back from industry back into academia and get my PhD was actually meeting my now mentor in 2016 at FIP's World Congress in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I met him at a Meet the SIGs event where he was presenting on the former PK/PD and systems pharmacology SIG. And yeah, so as you can see, 2 years after meeting him, I ended up starting to work under him. So again, just a little FIP pitch there on the value of networking and attending the work. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so as you can probably tell, there was a lot of decisions that I had to make during that 10-year transition of my career so far. So the most important aspects you need to ask yourself is a couple, and they overall kind of lead to one major question: is what do I value most? And honestly, that can change. So if you please click next. So the two really important aspects is how much do I enjoy my current career path? And also that's something that goes along with that is there something that interests me more? And then another important question is, would I value myself and career more pursuing this new interest? So it's one thing to enjoy your current career path, but is there something that interests you more that would allow you to really increase that value in your career? And of course, you need to ask this often. This isn't something that you can just ask yourself once and you say, yes, I enjoy my current career path. Nothing else interests me more. And that will be the same forever. This can change just as your career can. So being honest with yourself and remaining open to new paths and fields certainly allows you to consider other career choices, and in the end result being a greater enjoyment what you do. And if you click next one more time, I think it's important to highlight being able to ask yourself what you value in your current career or what you value in new interests gives you the ability to not feel stuck in a career you're not happy with. And unfortunately, that can happen a lot. And I of course experienced that myself for a bit before I learned to take the next steps in career change. So next slide, please. Okay. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to focus more on like where my experiences were with value instead of trying to tell you all how to value yourself, because of course this is a personal decision. So I'll start off with first. I went from in 2009 that I want to help people. I want to be in medicine, so I'm going to be a pharmacist. And it was a fairly, I guess, 3 years into my PharmD education that I realized not only do I want to help people, but I also want to make new drugs and develop new drugs for other pharmacists to use. So that's when I chose to transfer my PharmD schooling to a pharmacology and toxicology route, which ended up with me working as a medical chemist developing new drugs for neuropharmacology and neurodegeneration prevention. So if you click next, yep. So that was when I started working at GSK after graduation, and it was about a year and a half into working as a chemist that I realized not only do I want to continue to develop drugs for people's benefit, but also I want to be on the cutting edge of the new technologies that we're using for drug development. So this is what made me kind of consider my transition from traditional bench work to more computational and computer research as well. So that's when I started getting my master's in computer science. And then from there, of course, I have to go back to my original intention for all this was to help people. So after being in computer science and not really being in the pharmacology field for about a year and a half, I transitioned back into a combination of integrating my computer science knowledge with pharmacology. And I was lucky enough to actually do this on a pharmacy clinical software. So basically developing software to recognize drug interactions for pharmacists in front of them who can then remediate those drug interactions or mitigate the drug interactions for patient safety. So I did that for quite some time, working for this healthcare technology company, Tabula Rasa. And it wasn't until about 2017 that I had made the decision that I was happy with what I was doing, but there was something I could see more, and that was basically further expanding my pharmacology knowledge with my computer modeling and computer science information, as well as my chemistry and molecular level understandings, to basically become a modeler to increase drug development, speed, safety, and of course the efficacy for patients. So that's where I am pursuing my PhD, and so that's where I'm at now. So as you can see, the underlying value has always been the same, and wanting to help people, but exactly what I value in terms of my career path has certainly changed. And again, it comes from the ability to kind of ask yourself, is this career path exactly what I want? Is there interest that I value, or is there interest that would increase my sense of value for both myself and my career? And yeah, so I highly suggest asking that to yourselves and being honest with yourselves. Next slide, please. So of course, I've been focusing a lot on value in terms of career and yourself, but career is not your life. Of course, it's an important aspect, but it's just one aspect of your life. Having a good career is certainly something we aim for, but most people also have to consider their family life, their personal life, their hobbies, and all of these go into what makes you. So of course, you need to consider how much you value all these other aspects of your life and how you would like to balance them in addition to your career. But one thing I'd like to, I guess, instill is that all these different aspects of your life are essentially all come together as what makes you. So you need to remember that being happy with your career will certainly impact the other aspects of your life. And so it's important to not value, not disregard your value and interest for your career, and basically let that stress harm the other aspects of your life. Of course, there's an elephant in the room that needs to be talked about when it comes to career changing, and that is salary. So of course, remuneration or salary is a big consideration when thinking about a career change. Of course, we all, or most of us, choose a career to earn a living, and balancing a high salary with a happy career can certainly be very difficult. The questions such as, if I leave my current career, I won't be making money, or I'll be making less money. That can be a very stressful or difficult decision to make. And the question would be, will my new career pay more, or will I be happier? And of course, unfortunately, a lot of these times, these things don't go hand in hand. They can, but they don't always. And so it's important to keep this in mind. And this is obviously going to be a very personal decision. So again, I'll go back to my career path and show you where that came into mind for me. So next slide, please. Okay, so where salary comes into play, of course, it's not the easiest to make, and this is going to be different for everyone. But for me, I personally chose career fulfillment and my interests over making money for the most part. Obviously, there is some times where I was able to save, and I was lucky enough to be able to work and save in order to basically fund my transitions back into education and different career paths. So as you can see, basically, during my PharmD and then pharmacology and toxicology schooling, I was not making money or earning a salary. However, when I graduated, I was able to earn a salary for 2 years as a chemist. Of course, then I made the difficult decision to transition back into academia to get my master's. And during that time, I was, of course, not earning a salary, but I was able to basically fund myself through my previous career. And then I was able to transition back and earn some salary again during my time at Tabula Rasa. And that was enough to basically allow me to save and fund my next transition back to getting my PhD. And of course, in the future, hopefully I will be making a salary again. And yeah, so this is basically my path. And when it came to considering salary, so of course I thought I had to think about that. And again, I personally made a decision to value my career interests and fulfillment over salary. But of course, it's a very difficult decision to make. And as I had mentioned earlier, I'll highlight that in 2016 was when I had first met my now PhD supervisor, but it wasn't until almost the end of 2018 that I actually started my PhD, and that was to basically earn enough money to fund myself to transition back to a basically zero salary position. So with that, I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to your questions at the end of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakali. Thank you for that very insightful presentation. I wrote down a few notes. One of the first notes that I wrote is that one of the keys to successful career changes is to really understand what you value in your career or what you value in life, whether it be progression, whether it be remuneration, whether it be work-life balance. So I think that is a really key thing. And what I noticed from both Dr. Chia and Mr. Sakali's presentations is that they both are definitely lifelong learners, and they have continued to upskill themselves. They have continued to push for further qualifications so that they can continue to climb the career ladder, or so that they can continue to do well in the career changes that they have decided to commit themselves to. I also noted two key points that I feel are very useful for anyone looking to change in their career, or just in ways to supplement their career journey. Is firstly, with regards to mentoring. I think mentoring is definitely key. I have to say mentoring has helped me a lot in my career, and most definitely networking as well. I believe Mr. Sakali mentioned that. And I think that is definitely something that one needs to really consider, especially this day and age where all of us are stuck in our bedrooms and working through, one laptop screens in most parts of the world. Take the opportunity to break the boundaries. The fact that you don't have to be physically present to actually create networks, and go all out and network as well if you're looking to change your career journey. So that takes us to our third speaker, which is Ms. Jess Liu. She is currently the head of medical and technical affairs in Procter & Gamble for ASEAN and for ANZ. She graduated from the International Medical University in 2009 and started her career as a pharmacist with the Ministry of Health. After becoming a registered pharmacist, she joined Parexel International in the field of clinical research, and subsequently she ventured into medical affairs, where she worked with multinational companies such as Novartis and AstraZeneca. Currently, she is very passionate about women empowerment in the workplace, as well as translating research evidence to patient care and talent development. Ms. Liu, I believe you are going to be sharing your screen, so I will stop share here to allow you to share your screen.
Sure, thanks a lot, Anisha. Let me just try to toggle my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Give me a moment.
Yes, perfect. Just has to go into slideshow mode, and yes, that's working. Great, thank you.
Sure, great. Thanks, Anisha, for the kind introduction, and thank you, FIP, for the kind invitation today. So today I'm going to share a bit more in terms of the perspective when it comes to the industry, and what are some strategies when it comes to a successful career change. So before going into the objectives of today, I would like everyone to get to know me slightly better. So I also come from Malaysia, and happy to know that both Anisha and Pek Yong are also from Malaysia. So I come from this state called Perak, in a small town called Kuala Kangsar. So after actually finishing my high school studies, I proceeded to the International Medical University in Malaysia to study and obtain my pharmacist degree. Shortly after that, I actually moved on to the hospital of Ipoh, or also known as Hospital Raja Permaisuri Bainun, to actually practice as a pre-registered pharmacist, and subsequently I was posted to a clinic to actually work as a pharmacist. So I have a slight streak of rebellion in me. So after the government actually announced that I can actually complete my compulsory service within 2 years rather than 4 years, I actually decided to join the dark side, which is the industry. So my first industry experience was actually Parexel. It's a US-based contract research organization, and I was there as the clinical research associate and also the regulatory pharmacist. Subsequently, I actually ventured out into medical affairs because I actually feel that I have a passion towards patient care and also to actually use the pharma muscle to actually improve patients' life better by identifying those unmet needs. So I spent some time in Novartis and subsequently in AstraZeneca, and now I'm with P&G Health. So in terms of my life motto, or rather what I strongly believe in, is no matter what you do, you need to be really relentless in the pursuit that sets your soul on fire. So something slightly personal about myself. So I'm a huge fan of hiking, and this is me in my pre-COVID life. This was 2017, where I successfully went out to Everest Base Camp. And at the same time, in order to actually overcome my fear of heights, I actually took up rock climbing because I really wanted to ensure that I had a very enjoyable experience in Everest Base Camp itself. And I also huge fan of fine art. And this is me in Belvedere, Vienna. So really looking forward to connecting with all of you face to face one day in one of the FIP conferences when the borders open up. So going back to the learning objectives, I'm tasked today to actually leverage on one's, to share the learning objectives on how we actually leverage on one's skills and interests to maximize career choices, and subsequently how we deal with career changes, what are the risks, benefits, and proper timing. So I'm just going to go ahead to share a bit of my personal experience throughout my entire career journey so far. So the question of how did I actually discover my skills and interests? We are all pharmacists here, and how do you actually set yourself apart compared to your peers when it comes to a certain job? Well, I really love this quote by Albert Einstein, which says that everybody is a genius, but if you really insist on judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So really, what you really need to find out what is your skills by various explorations, which I will talk about further. I think Pei Yong also touched a bit on the having a passion or mission and what is really the vocation that you bring to the table. So I think the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai really summarizes it perfectly well, but it refers to something that gives a person a sense of purpose and a reason for living. So I am a strong and firm believer in terms of this, and I'll share a bit more in terms of that. So you might ask, what are the hows? So for me, it boils down to three things: knowing what I dislike, and being mindful of what really sparks joy. And by knowing all this, just go on and do some trial and error. So how did I apply these three concepts to my life previously? So I had asked myself, so have a deep and meaningful conversation with yourself, because you would be the person that knows yourself the best. So what did I dislike back then, when I was practicing as a pharmacist in the Ministry of Health? Well, I didn't really like the fact being behind the pharmacy counter for my entire day. I didn't really like the mundane life of spending the heydays of my youth trapped at a small town. So oftentimes I would ask myself, how would life be, behind the pharmacy counter? And at that point, I felt like I didn't have a choice within those 4 years, because I had to complete that to get my pharmacy license. So at the third year of my government pharmacy practice, I actually left corporate after I I left for corporate after I can actually obtain my pharmacy license. And I was really determined to increase my professional exposure beyond Malaysia. And from a small town in a clinic, I moved to Kuala Lumpur. The second part, be really mindful of what sparks joy. So what did back then make me happy and what makes me happy now? So throughout consistently in my more than 10 years of working life, what consistently brought me joy is interacting with the patients and doing something that is meaningful to them. It didn't change back then when I was a pharmacist in a small clinic in a small town. It didn't change now when I'm in P&G Health because through a lot of activities and initiatives that we do, we actually can indirectly or directly impact patients' life in a meaningful manner. So I also like traveling. I like seeing the world. I like seeing what's beyond me in my current life. I learn a lot in my entire life by exposing myself to different cultures, different countries. So that's something that sparked joy since young. And at the same time, I value teamwork a lot. And I think I perform the best when I'm working with a group of people that can help each other and complement each other in terms of skill sets. So with that in mind, I actually started my corporate journey in clinical research and regulatory, and I managed trials in Malaysia and Singapore. So I also actively had the conversation with my line manager that, you know, even beyond Malaysia and Singapore, I want to try managing trials beyond that. So when there was an opportunity of a similar trial, one of the clinical research associates actually went on maternity leave. So I was actually tasked to handle some of the trials in Philippines as well. So don't be afraid to voice out what you want because you are the best person that help your manager manage you. And after that, I transitioned to medical affairs because I felt that there's a bigger opportunity there to actually interact with real life practitioners, both doctors and pharmacists, and also through them listening to the voice of the patients, knowing what their unmet needs are in a certain disease area that I'm in charge of. And that really sparked meaning in my entire career. So I moved from local to region. So also bearing in mind what sparked joy for me. So I have been actively pursuing a career beyond Malaysia, and I did not stop at that. And the third point was I shifted my career from pharmaceutical. So you saw that I was in Novartis and AstraZeneca. Then after that, I moved on to consumer health because I thought that I was constantly being told that being in pharmaceuticals, your career ceiling in medical affairs would only be a medical affairs manager. And I refused to accept that. But I choose to actually explore further to see what are the opportunities available out there. Hence, it brought me to consumer health, and it has been working really well for me so far. So don't be afraid to try. Try and fail, but don't fail to try. So how did I actually deal with career change? Well, in my various roles, I always felt it's really important to have a growth mindset. So you should always have a learner's attitude. Stay hungry, stay foolish, like what Steve Jobs says. So remember, every expert was once an amateur. So don't be afraid to make mistakes because that's how you learn. And similarly to the other two speakers, I also think it's really important to have a mentor that is beyond your line manager. So I have two mentors within P&G, one that supports me in terms of the technical functions of R&D, but at the same time, my mentor actually told me what separates good from great in a corporate organization is a technical person with business acumen. So I actually have mentor from the business or the commercial function as well to actually help me sharpen and understand more what the organization actually requires. Secondly, it's very important to be purposeful. So what is your why? Ask yourself if you don't know that. The first thing when you join an organization is you need to be clear on your performance goal. And if you're not clear, ask your line manager. he or she will be able to explain to you further and give you a very clear path by collaborating with you to help you achieve your goals. And the third part is have a passion project. So within all your goals, within all your daily work, what actually keeps you awake at night? What makes you feel like waking up and going to work every day? So have that in mind and think of within your current role, what gives you that kind of passion that brings you to work? And having a passion project, trust me, it will bring you through the toughest day of your career life, because tough days are really happen really often. So having that, it actually keeps you going. Third point, strengthen your agility muscle. So as you all know, and COVID-19 has proved to us that change is the only constant. The only way to stay relevant is to pivot through difficult times, through tough times, and it's not survival of the fittest anymore. It's the survival of the most adaptable. In P&G, we are a huge fan of purpose, values, and principles. So these are the guiding things that I feel has charted us through this difficult time of change of COVID-19. And to me, it's important to find an organization that aligns your personal goals to the company goals. So it cannot have too much variation. If not, you will feel like you're not really being true to yourself. And when you're not being true to yourself, you can't really perform at the most optimum. But most importantly, have fun throughout the entire career journey. So in my entire career, my best ideas are actually sparked when we actually had fun, had team meetings. So this was in AstraZeneca, where it was the end of our team meeting and we took a group photo together with the rest of the medical team. And this was in P&G Health. We were really privileged to join our India colleagues in Dharamshala for team building activity. And the last picture was actually in Yogyakarta, where we tried on the traditional costume and took a group photo. That is really memorable, and it kind of binds us together, especially during these difficult times. So this was the fun moments throughout. So with every change, of course, it comes with risks and benefits. So to me, in the first 10 years of your career, I feel take calculated risks, and definitely you'll fail. Big failure, small failure, but it's okay. Pick yourself up. And again, that will help you find your passion. And during this time, it's okay to learn a bit of everything. If you're interested in terms of programming, AI, you're interested in marketing as a pharmacist, go out there. There's so much information available on LinkedIn, Coursera, etc., with partnership with various Ivy League universities. Go and learn. And from learning and also failing, you'll understand what your passion is. And after 10 years, I would suggest that you should focus on sharpening your skills and also obtain mastery in what you think you're good at. So if you're not sure, try to talk to people that are close to you, be it your manager, your best friend, your partner. They will be able to tell you what you're good at. And of course, have the end goal in mind. What do you expect yourself to actually achieve after a certain number of years by working? Are you planning to retire early? Are you planning to actually continue in a different industry or make a total change at all and do something that is totally irrelevant to the pharmacy practice? So be clear on what you want. So this quote is something that I believe everyone has seen before. In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take, relationships we are afraid to have, and the decisions we waited too long to make. So don't be that person. Right, coming to the proper timing. When is it the best to say goodbye? When is it the best time to make a career change? Well, for me, there were three key things that stood out. The first thing, I think in this pandemic, there has been huge impact on mental health, and it shined a lot of spotlight in terms of maintaining great mental health. So if the career or your job actually impacts your mental health, to be honest, it's not worth it, because self-care is above everything else. If you can't take good care of yourself or your mental health, it's impossible to perform and contribute to the organization, or even be the best person to your loved ones. The second part, lacking personal and professional growth. So like I mentioned just now, having a growth mindset is very important. So find a career that can help you focus on your personal and professional growth. A lot of people might ask about the money, the promotion that comes. So I feel if you focus on growing the business, growing yourself, those are the things that comes from the consequences of your own professional growth and also growing the business. So focus on doing the right thing, and the money, the promotion, it'll come together with that. And last but not least, like I mentioned, company and personal values is important to align to be the best and the truest version of yourself. So moving on to a conclusion, I just want to recap what I've mentioned just now. Knowing your tree house, for me, is knowing what I dislike, being really mindful on what sparks joy, and also trying and failing. The second one, when it comes to career change, have a growth mindset, be purposeful, strengthen your agility muscle, and always try to have fun. Third part, take calculated risks and always stay focused when you have the goal in mind. Last but not least, you need to know when to say goodbye when a career or a job is no longer aligned with your life goals. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for attending. This is my email address and this is my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to hit me up, and also thank you so much. And I'll hand back to Anisha, the moderator. Thank you, Anisha. Over back to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Jess. That was a very motivational talk, actually. And I also, again, made a few notes. Firstly, I think one of the things that was mentioned was having a growth mindset. And I feel that's really, really very relevant, especially these days. I liked what Jess actually mentioned about being adaptive and being flexible. I think that's very important in the career and the workplace these days. I think we've all dealt with various versions of needing to be flexible and needing to be adaptive, especially with light of the current pandemic. Again, I think as all the other speakers have also mentioned, mentoring has played a huge role in Jess's career journey. It's definitely played a huge role in my career journey. I have a mentor in all kinds of different aspects. I've got one for, just how to deal with learning about the organization. I've got one for research. I've got one that I learn, aspects of education from. And I think as I saw in the chat box, this was mentioned by YPG's president, Renly Lim, do consider YPG's mentorship program as well. We have a mentorship program with, the main leaders from FIP who all volunteer and express interest to be mentors. So it's a great opportunity for some of our YPG members to learn as well. So do consider that. Definitely be purposeful and definitely consider self-care. I think that's especially relevant in our times today when we're all facing pressures from all levels with regards to this pandemic. So that really takes us to the question and answer session now. So I'll stop share and give the opportunity to our panelists and our hosts to turn on their cameras as we field some questions from the audience. Otuto, I'll hand it over to you to select some questions for our panel.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Anisha. So I would like to speak with ask the first speaker, Dr. Peak. Some people want to know that most people work for survival and they don't do what they actually love doing. So how can one create a balance and then move into a place where you can align your interests, your skills, and your economic gains to make, profit for yourself and also profit for the society?
Or is that for me?
Yes, for you, Dr. Peak.
Oh. Well, that's a really difficult question you gave me. And maybe other people can jump in as well. I think that's really a personal decision. And I don't think I have very wise advice, because everybody has a different starting point and everybody has a different, I suppose, threshold of what they're comfortable with. So I guess you can start being choosy when you have enough to live on. I wouldn't say do something you love but doesn't pay well, then you'll be miserable because you haven't got enough. So that's my wisdom. But having said that, I did give up a pharma job to join the university, and university pay scale is bad. All right, that's me.
Okay, so I don't know whether Brian or Yas has anything to add to that.
Brian, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, it's of course not a safe that. So I mean, just to echo, I'd certainly say yourself and yeah, it's I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. So Josh, do you want to go?
Yeah. To me, it's always how determined you want it and how much you want it. You know, once you set a goal, and if that goal is important enough for you, you actually find ways to actually make it happen. So you know, financial difficulties can happen during various parts of our life. But if that's something that you really want, there are always like chances to actually cut down our expenses on other things, lead a slightly more modest and simple lifestyle to actually tide through that difficult period. So I think to sum up is really be really sure in what you want, and with that, you will definitely find ways to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. So to you, Brian, so as someone that has navigated 2 or 3 different career paths, some people want to know how third world countries that don't have as much opportunities to, navigate through different career paths can help to close this gap in access to opportunities. And then they will also like to know how difficult it is or it was for you to leave some of your skills behind and take a new pathway.
Yeah, so 2 very, very great questions. To answer the first one, so my experience would be, of course, I'm from the US, but I do have colleagues who came from third world countries, and I'd say networking is important, and finding people that, if you may not have the most opportunities within your university, within your country, organizations like FIP, and simply even just reaching out via email can certainly help, because there's a lot of support structures for people, not just within a particular country, but around the world. So I'd say get a little creative and increase your network will certainly help if you don't have a lot of good opportunities directly in front of you within your home country. For the second question, yes, it's hard to kind of leave some skills behind, but I don't see it as much as expanding those skills into a further career that interests me. So pharmacy to building better drugs, to using computers to build those drugs, to using all of that knowledge to better design clinical trials and optimize therapies mechanistically is, of course, I did lose some skills along the way, but it's like riding a bike. You can pick them back up again if you need to. So don't see it as you're losing skills.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. And I saw you dropped your email address at the chat box. So if anyone wants to reach out to Brian for maybe any opportunities or any advice he has, you can do that on the chat. You can do that through his email. Dr. Peik, you were raising your hand. Did you want to say something?
Yes, indeed, I do. I just want to add that I actually, if you think about it, you don't leave that many skills behind, I think, because you learn project management, you learn, time management, you learn people management, you learn how to budget. So you don't really leave much skills behind. I think you still use them. I've used the skills I learned from day one. So, I mean, one of the people, attendees asked, if you're undecided, what do you choose? Choose something that will help polish your skills that you can use again and again and again. That was what I would say.
Yes, to the issue of being undecided, I also wanted Yas to, throw a bit more light on that, and maybe any advice you would have to give for a fresh PharmD graduate.
Well, I think in terms of for fresh grads, right? Usually you would need to go through a provisional registered pharmacist training. So I think that has helped me a lot. So in certain countries, you actually have opportunities to actually be attached in different branches of pharmacy, both in hospital, industry, or even or like various other pharmacies, or even the in the manufacturing industry. So these are the choices that you can actually make. But for someone that is still studying, right, I think what has worked really well is taking out an internship in pharmaceutical companies. So there are always internship opportunities within pharmaceutical companies. In P&G Health itself, we do offer internship opportunities as well. We have 2 intakes a year, and usually the interns because our innovation center actually sits in Singapore. So the people that are on the line in Singapore do stay tuned to our internship opportunities. We usually have intakes that come in twice a year. So from there, the interns are actually being latched to different departments within research and development. That gives you a really different picture and opens your eyes to what the industry has to offer. So I encourage you to actually take up internship opportunities whenever relevant in your studying days.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this question has been answered, but for the purpose of some others that may not have seen the answer, one participant wants to know if it's a big transition if you want to change from a hospital setting to a clinical research field, and how he or she can go about this.
Can I answer that one?
Okay, go ahead, Anisha.
As someone that has switched from community to clinical to academia, what I can say is that the most important thing to do is to just have an open mind, be prepared to learn, have a humble attitude, understand that, at times you may have to go from being somewhat in a mid-level tier right back down to the start again. And the way to go about it is to just continue to accept that you need to keep learning, and that at times there may be people that are younger than you, that are more junior than you, because they've been in that field for a little bit longer. They may be a little bit ahead of you, but just know that you are on your own career journey. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your own progression. Have that open mind and just accept the experiences as they come along. Just keep observing and just keep learning, and you'll get to where you need to be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anisha. And then someone wants to know what advice you would like to give a young pharmacist who would like to go into research but doesn't know how to go about it. So this question was actually for Dr. Peak, and then any other panelists can also chip in something.
So I'm not sure where the question is from. Assuming you're in a hospital, then you can always start a little study in the hospital, and that's my first study. I did it when I was a houseman. I was working in the pharmacy department, outpatient, and I look at the prescriptions. So I did my first little project then, but I got permission from my boss, so he and I did it. I think starting small wherever you are would be good. Even in the community pharmacy, people come in, ask for ivermectin or ask for whatever. You can start interviewing them and ask them, systematically documenting the reasons people ask for antibiotics. If AMR is what you're interested in, of course, don't forget to get ethics approval. But you can start small. So that's one way. Another way is put some feelers out saying that, I'm interested. Is there anybody who needs a research assistant? And you can do that. You can join a group in the university, or someone who has their research team, but join the research team in a part-time way or something, or help out in any way you can. I would start small, and that's what I would do.
So how open are you to collaborations and maybe mentorship?
All the time.
Okay.
I actually have a question that I was interested to ask the panel. Have any of the panel dealt with fear of uncertainty when you moving from one new field to the next, or perhaps I guess like in Mr. Sikali's case, you went from working to studying. Have you ever dealt with the fear of uncertainty, and how do you cope with this?
So uncertainty, it's just a condition of life, in my opinion. You can never really be certain for anything down the line. So using uncertainty as a basically mechanism of fear for preventing you for pursuing change is something that is potentially going to create regrets. And so I think it's important to basically something that Jess had said is it's okay, like try to fail, but don't fail to try. Try and fail, but don't fail to try. So I think that's important, and that's kind of what led me to make decisions in the face of uncertainty and try new things. Is it's better to experience that failure and learn from it rather than inhibit yourself at all, because basically uncertainty is scary.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Tuto.
Yes, okay. So one more question here. I know you've answered that, that's for Dr. Peak, but for others that might want to know as well, maybe they didn't look at the response on the chat box. They want to know why you chose to do an MSc in bioethics. Yeah, you answered that, but maybe more people can learn from that, and why you decided to transition from being a pharmacist and going into MS in bioethics. And one other person wants to know, if you are pursuing a research career, do you still need to be a registered pharmacist in your country?
Okay, I'll answer the first one. So why did I do MSc in bioethics? So I did it when in my 40s. MSc in bioethics in my 40s. So that's a huge decision. But I thought that, so I never stopped being a pharmacist. I stopped practicing as a pharmacist, let's say in a hospital and in the usual places, but never stopped being a pharmacist. So all my years conducting clinical trials, there were, of course, you encountered lots of ethical issues in clinical trials. How to get consent, how to recruit pregnant women in studies, how to recruit migrant people in studies. So it's all fraught with ethical issues, especially in low and middle income settings. You know, we have research in malaria, etc. So I've always lived and breathed ethics, practicing ethics, thinking about things. But as to move to a more official role to head up a bioethics department, I thought I needed to learn some theory. And as someone mentioned humility, although with the experience, I thought I needed some theory, and it also helped me to sit back and think about things, applying the theory, so understanding the theory behind all the application. So it was a good experience, and I'm with a MSc, I can call myself a bioethicist as well. As a pharmacist, I never stopped being a pharmacist. But sometimes I don't know, the academics in the room will say, you know, if you want to apply for funding in bioethics, you haven't got a piece of paper, it's really hard. So I got that for this reason as well. I can have students in bioethics, PhD students in bioethics. I can apply for funding in bioethics. I actually learned a lot when I took the degree. The most interesting part was I was in a class full of students in their 20s. Yeah, that's me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Pik. Anisha, back to you. That will be all from me for now.
Thank you very much, Otuto. Thank you very much to all of the panelists. And I just wanted to say as well, just to add on to what Dr. Chia said, that, you know, honestly, you're never, age is no barrier to learning. My mom is currently 65 years old and she's doing her master's because she loves to learn, and, you know, the journey never ends. So definitely take any opportunities that come your way and maximize it, make the most of it. There is space to learn in everything around us, okay? So now let me just wrap up this session. It's been a really inspiring session today. And I think we've learned a lot from each and every panelist, from their experiences and from their career journey. So in conclusion, if I were to summarize all of the strategies that I have learned from them today, is firstly, find your purpose in your career, find what drives you. Is it that you want to do work where you make a difference? Is it that you want to see a positive impact from your actions? Or is it that what matters to you is, rewards, remuneration, reputation? We all have different things that we value. But is it that you value work-life balance and your family, having time for them? Find what drives you, find what is important to you. Think about what you value. And then I think it's very important for you to also accept that career journey is an organic journey. It evolves depending to your circumstances, the environment, how you change as well when time goes by. Your needs change, your mentality towards how you value life changes as well. And as one of our panelists mentioned, it's really important to be adaptive if you want to survive these days, to be flexible. One thing that I would add from my point of view is that it's really important to reflect, to keep reflecting. I believe as a pharmacist, being a reflective practitioner is very, very important. Reflect about what went well, what didn't go well, where you can improve. What weaknesses do you want to strengthen? What strengths do you have? Think about all of that in the context of your workspace. Think about all of that in the context of progression in terms of your career journey. As one of our panelists mentioned today, learn how to deal with career change and be mindful of your circumstances, be mindful of timing, be mindful of how supportive your environment is, and think about the progression in which your career journey, which direction you intend to take it to. Finally, my final message would be that it's all about the attitude. It's about having the attitude to turn obstacles into opportunities. If you always look at, and this is something that I teach in my university as well about resilience, if you always look at the door that is closed, it's going to be hard for you to progress further. When a door closes, you have to then look instead to find what door is open and use that opportunity to move forward. Keep an open mind, remain humble, be a lifelong learner, and I think you will be able to take your goals, you'll be able to meet your goals as long as you keep in mind all of these strategies. So if you're interested to attend more FIP digital events, here is a link that takes you to a list of all the events. I believe we've got all events listed up until 30th September at the moment, and there's some great events on this week, next week, and all other weeks. So please do be a part. We love having the support of our audience. In terms of the FIP Young Pharmacists Group, we have a few events coming up. The first being the FIP YPG virtual business meeting that's going to be on the 4th of September on Saturday, as well as the 6th of September on Monday. So we look forward to seeing you there if you're a YPG member. Following that, we also have another webinar coming up. And this webinar, again, continuing our career development series, is on career paths and opportunities in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And this will be on the 18th of October, 2021. So we hope to see you there. Finally, here is a slide to showcase our toolkit, the career development toolkit that was created by FIP YPG for early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists. It's incredibly helpful. It's a wealth of information. And there's also some separate worksheets there for you to understand yourself better, as well as the direction you wish to take your career in. I find it very useful, and I hope you will as well. And you can find that on the FIP website, or you can just take a picture of this QR code and scan it in order to gain access to it. That is all from me. Thank you very much for attending. And thank you very, very much to our panelists for all the insightful information that you've given us today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anisha. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.